Welcome back to the Board of County Commissioners policy sessions on this July 20, 2021. Gary, what's up?
Thank you, Chair Smith. First, Commissioner Schrader is out of the office today, but all other commissioners are present. First policy session is formation of an emergency preparedness council for disaster mitigation. We have Daniel Neibauer, Disaster Management Interim Director, and Sue Hildick, Director of Public and Government Affairs, to present. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Smith. I'm here today to discuss a concept to form a new advisory committee to the County and Emergency Preparedness Council. As you're well aware, the county faced multiple disasters of historic proportions over the last 18 months. In January 2021, Chair Smith proposed the formation of a council, and as staff has worked on the concept, we have heard from both the community and county staff the need and the value for such a council. The formation of this council will create a forum for community input and observations of disaster response and planning. The desire is to be able to focus on specific aspects that require deep partnership with the public. Our concept is that the council should comprise of 15 key partners that represent the community as a whole. This would include, but not be limited to, representatives from CPOs, utility partners, local business owners, tourism industry leaders, nonprofit leaders, local city officials, and members of the BCC. The council will review both the disaster management performance, Clackamas strategic results, and after-action reports from recent incident and exercise. Hopefully just exercises, no incidents. Based on this review, the council will identify opportunities that would benefit from community involvement and develop subgroups that would take an in-depth look at these issues and gaps around that opportunity. It is expected that commissioners will participate and lead those subgroups. The concept is for the council to meet quarterly and the community members to be appointed by the BCC from a countywide application process in accordance with existing ABC recruitment and application processes. The subgroups will meet as needed. From a disaster management perspective, our department is excited about the possibility and opportunity this council would provide. Increased community engagement only adds to the preparedness and planning for a disaster. While the council would work to identify opportunities and subgroups, disaster management see immediate applicability to our upcoming disaster zone planning. If you refer to the map, that's part of the attachment. It splits the county into 21 disaster zones, which we've identified as what we call geographical islands, areas that would be isolated in a large disaster. And the concept is to work with those zones to get them prepared on their own so that they can make it a little while we hopefully, not a Cascadia, but another situation, are working our way to get resources to them. But also public information strategies that would include before, during, and after disaster, situational awareness, where we're increasing our communications and coordination with the community and its current response efforts, and alert and notification. And those are just kind of off the top of our heads, but understand that the council would be looking and identifying the subgroups and opportunities they see most fit. The convening of this group would fall to disaster management and PGA. The support and any unique recruiting costs of the council will be absorbed by the current disaster management budget. And Sue Hildick is here to discuss logistics around forming a council and recruiting members.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sue. Go ahead.
Thanks, Daniel. Commissioners and Chair Smith, I'm Sue Hildick, the Director of Public and Government Affairs, and I can't help but begin by quoting Margaret Mead, who shared that we should never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. That is one of my absolute favorites and why I love that community engagement resides within the Department of Public and Government Affairs. Clackamas County highly values the voices of our residents. We have an ecosystem of 46 ABCs, which are advisory boards and commissions that the county has organized and the board has appointed so that we can hear from and take action on behalf of our residents. If you approve the Emergency Preparedness Council proposed today, it will be the 47th ABC. And yes, they are all active, and we know that because we asked them. And they told us they were. It may be they only meet once a year, some meet once a month. There is a wide variety of what active means. Our community members who serve in these roles offer their lived experience and their professional experience sometimes to help guide the BCC and staff to ensure that our county programs meet community needs and reflect community values. In summary, ABCs exist because we all live here together and we need to look out for one another. And there's probably no other issue that demonstrates that as clearly as preparing for disasters and emergencies. So if approved today, PGA will work with Daniel and his team in disaster management to clarify the scope of the group, help propose a draft bylaws based on our engagement goals and legal needs. Our experience tells us that it's helpful to bring those bylaws, once reviewed by County Council, to the newly formed committee to allow them to review a draft and provide input before adopting. And then we will launch a recruitment. And we do this by using all of our tools, the county website, social media, email distribution lists, and through community groups. And sometimes we deploy custom outreach, like targeted social media, if we have specific backgrounds we're looking for. We will lean on our partners to find participants to represent the identified areas of interest, such as CPOs, utility partners such as PGE, local business owners, tourism industry representatives, nonprofit partners, and local city officials. We use a universal application tool for all of our ABCs to streamline the process and make it easier for our residents. When we get the applications, PGA sends them on to disaster management, and disaster management has the responsibility for selecting candidates and recommending those to you. We advise on selection criteria, process, and we can serve on the selection panel if desired. It usually takes about 2 to 3 months to do all that, but given the priority of this topic, we will expedite that to the extent possible.
That's exactly what I want to hear. Thank you, Sue.
And since I'm here on the ABC topic, I want to update you as to our progress on the county website related to these groups, because I know you all care deeply about that, as do we. First, it's important to understand that historically, PGA maintains the pages from information that's submitted by the departments. The departments really own the relationships with the ABC. We are responsible for conveying the information of the groups. So every ABC has an affiliated department, and each department has a staff liaison to support it. We are nearly finished updating the web pages with current information. We're down to only 5 ABCs that we still need to hear from. But you'll soon be able to find an updated roster, meeting material from the last 2 meetings, contact information, and meeting dates and times. Almost complete. Should be by the end of the week. We have also developed a strategic plan for ABCs that we'll soon be bringing to you that calls for an annual or biannual report from each of them to the BCC. Sort of creates a little bit more structure so we have an annual reporting process. In an effort to create that one county ownership of their success. Thank you.
This is great. It's been long awaited by my part. It's a goal of mine. I'm very pleased with what you brought forth today. And I'm sure commissioners all have input on this. Daniel, you mentioned once we have our 15 council members appointed, there would be subgroups. Is that right?
Yes.
And they talked to me about the subgroups, and I find it's 5 subgroups, right?
I think that would be a good number.
Because there's 5 commissioners, so each commissioner would get a subgroup. Now, how are those subgroups defined?
That would be up to the council. I think it would provide their opportunity to look.
So maybe you take, in disaster, maybe we take training, the volunteers, for instance, and I want to touch on that in a minute. I met an interesting man named Dale Kuntz, and he's the CEO of the American Red Cross for the Cascade regions, and he keeps me updated with the emails, and I love it. And I just got one today in that, talking about the fire down in Klamath that has now reached 400,000 acres. It's the largest forest fire in Oregon's history. And the efforts that they do. So the Red Cross will go out and they will train our people without cost. And we've tried to do it in the past, but frankly, there wasn't a whole lot of folks out there wanting to do it. It's very different now. I have people talking to me all the time, especially in the rural areas of our citizens firefighters who stayed home, who did not evacuated, that fought the fires and they protected homes. And so there's a lot of interest out there. If we can provide training, I want to be trained. I mean, I'm more than willing to be trained and offer whatever I have available of my resources, and my husband would too, and family members would too, and it's a very exciting time. For instance, since our start in the Oregon wildfire response on just July 9th of 2021, so how many days is that? Not very many. The Red Cross has provided for over 500 overnight stays for people, served 3,000 meals and snacks, and distributed emergency supplies and comforting kits, cleanup kits, and wildfire kits. That's just in this one fire.
That
And
was the bootleg fire?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes. In preparation to respond during the predicted extreme for the future fire season this year, they have created a standing disaster response operation with command, planning, logistics, and mass care leadership. And during times of emergency, your command structure is vital in that, and Commissioners, command structure does not include us. I'm just saying. We have professionals to do that. And it's something that I learned taking my emergency management training courses recently, and then when we had the training back several years ago in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Secondly, forward deployed volunteer shelter strike teams to supplement our local community volunteer workforce. So if we need shelter set up in a matter of a day or two. Number 3, increase recruitment and training efforts for all levels of our operation. That's really important because, golly, I want to help, but I don't know what to do. And then 4, pre-positioned needed supplies from our national logistics resources within the region. And that is really important to me, that we have supplies out in our rural areas waiting to be used, whether it be water, whether it be blankets, whether it would be maybe oxygen. I don't know if it's possible to have generators. I just don't know because I don't know what I don't know. But certainly there's a whole list of things that we can do. And if we can use any of our ARP money for preparedness, I would certainly like to be able to supplement some of these ideas. And as this council is being prepared, I'm sure these topics will come up. And there's so much information, I think, and so many good people to lead us. I think Clackamas County can develop a nice structure. Did you folks, commissioners, did you take a look at the accompanying map in this policy session of the 21? Something happened to my thingamajigger here. Hang on. There we go. And those include some of our most remote areas in Clackamas County. I don't know. It says I'm having a problem getting my. Thank you, Gary. So anybody?
Mine too. I'm getting knocked off.
Yeah, I'm getting
constantly.
knocked off too, Paul. You have an iPad?
Yep.
I have an iPad and it's not letting me do that. And you don't.
I'm just using this. You are welcome. I've been playing with this map the whole time you guys.
And it's fun, isn't
Here
it?
you go. If you want to zoom in.
And did you locate your residences? That's the first thing I did. Gee, what region am I in? I think I'm in 14. Okay. That's very good. And of course, I have friends all over the county, as you folks might too. And how are these 21 zones going to be implemented? What's your plan for that?
We're going to be developing plans for each zone that talk about the resources they have within there, how to organize, how to communicate. One of the projects we're working with federal grant funds, but they're coming through the state, is to get shelter trailers in each zone so that they will have a shelter trailer located in that zone. So in the event that zone is cut off for whatever reason, there will be individuals in that area that can access that and open that up. And our intent is to increase that planning. We realize there's a challenge because zones 1, 2, and 3 are much more urban than, say, 20 and 11. So the plans will have to look different for each zone. But that's after our revision of the emergency operations plan. This is our next big project to tackle. And I believe that the Emergency Preparedness Council will be key in bringing in those experts and the folks that are knowledgeable in that area to learn about the resources that exist in that area.
And those emergency trailers is a great idea. I assume they're mobile.
Yes.
And the locations in some of these, some of these zones, don't have cities or even a fire department where I don't know where you would park them. If they had a fire station, that I suppose that would be the first inclination. But if you don't, would you pick a private landowner, for instance, and park it on their place? Some farmer that would be willing to, have a pickup truck big enough to hook it on and let's go type of situation. I don't know. It's one of the questions that I have because as I look at these very rural zones out here.
When you can't even see 21 because it's underneath the urban area cutout. But I think that would be a perfect spot for the council to be able to help us weigh in and make connections with those that are active in their community and would have space or located near potential shelter. But that would be a perfect way for us to engage.
Okay, Commissioner Sonia, please.
Yeah, so this is great. Chair Smith, I really support this and appreciate your leadership in pushing this forward because it is so very important. And I love the map. I was playing with it, making it bigger, really seeing where, and it's true, there are islands of areas geographically that make sense. I am assuming in a variety of different disasters for those to be areas where there would be more connection. Have we thought about sort of overlaying our existing already natural, like we have the CPOs, which might overlay certain areas, or even our school districts, or have we done any of that in this?
We definitely have the potential to. Nancy Bush can answer a little more of that. She helped develop these zones.
Yeah. So Nancy Bush, COO. Yes, we've actually done, in some cases, we haven't done like the CPOs. We haven't done that. We've done fire districts. The fire districts have a map that's very, very similar to this one. Theirs are a little different just because of where they can get to and where they can't and how their fire districts work. So we have fire districts overlaid. We've overlaid school districts. We've overlaid cities, of course. So we have a lot of those we have put in, I believe, childcare facilities. So all of that has been overlaid at one point or another, and we can pull those layers up, of course, with GIS when we need to. Also, just to let you know that actually this map was developed by DTD and our transportation and maintenance, and it was developed by using major highways and rivers, and it really is about if there's a big Cascadia, right? It's like, so what naturally becomes an island in Cascadia, which does work for all of our other hazards as well. So we have done some of that overlay. This has been in the works for 3 years, and we just haven't had the staff to do it. So
But now we have the
But
staff.
now we're getting more staff on, and it's a perfect time to do it.
Thank you, Commissioners, for approving our budget for this, by the way. Go ahead,
Yes,
Nancy.
thank you.
I had
So,
to just.
yes, yeah, so a long answer, but yes, we've done some overlays. We probably haven't done all of them that we need to, but we have done them.
So then I'm curious with our existing, and we just talked about ABCs, but there are other natural points of connection. Have we thought about how we're going to leverage all of that within this effort?
That is part of what this council is going to be helping us do.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because that will be, we don't want to recreate. I mean, I'm just thinking of all of the things when becoming a commissioner was the CPOs, and then we have the community leaders, and we have the, Sue, what's the group called? I can't remember now, Connections.
C4.
Well, there's C4, which is another one that's really important, but there are all the, Paul, you have to help me. It starts with the CCC. I can't think of what the acronym stands for.
CCI?
CCI, involvement, citizen community involvement. It's good.
And I do think that it's a great reason to have PGA as a partner on this effort because they can help access and resource and say, hey, we actually have an ABC that does that or other community spots to do it. I always say it as an emergency manager, I never want to be too much of an expert in something, but I want to know somebody who is. And I think that's a great philosophy with this as well. Like this council doesn't have to be the expert in something, but we need to resource those that are.
Is there also, my last question, any possibility of us determining where our most vulnerable residents are in planning through a council? I mean, I know there's a lot of HIPAA requirements and there's privacy concerns.
I think, you bring up a good point, and on some of the public service announcements, Sue, that we did, is check on your neighbors. And that's a philosophy that's going to have to come from the council. Number one is your own best advocate, right? And whenever possible, try to prepare your own self in your own house, and then check on your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors a little bit. We're coming out of COVID, and during COVID, the message was, don't connect, don't. And so we're having to relearn, I think, how to be social again. And if we as individuals can identify those people within our neighborhoods my neighborhood, is like 10 miles. I don't have a neighborhood. My nearest neighbor is a mile away. So so that takes more effort to reach out. But in my neighborhood, even with that in mind, we have identified who needs to be checked on. And I think that is something that we can start a conversation around, and I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. I know when I went out to all the CPOs and connected, and one question I asked is, well, how do we know if Aunt Matilda, who's 90 years old, is doing okay? And in some areas, it's like, oh, well, we know if Aunt Matilda is out there working in her tomato garden. You know, we see her every day, or whatever the situation was. But some areas are like, you know, we're here because we don't want to be near anyone, and we live here for a reason, and they don't want the social connection. So our county is very diverse in its social assets, which is concerning to me, looking at the deaths during the heat wave. And some of those that were identified from Multnomah County, there was an individual who didn't have internet access or, you know, any way to get the information.
That we had cooling shelters, for instance.
Yeah, but this was in Multnomah. We don't know what our situation was in Clackamas, but still, there are those people that are not connected. I went on my walk this morning thinking,
Thank you, Sonia.
you're welcome, thinking, wow, it'd be really good if we really orchestrated everybody having someone to check in on throughout the whole county, just every single person having, even 5 people, that if something happens, we check in. We make a commitment to check in with at least 5 people.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's something that we can work on. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so a lot of good discussion, great opportunity for community building and making, great opportunity for community building. The part that I want to, this is a concept, and it sounds like there's support, is making sure that the people around the table have, maybe roles, or they have a background, or they bring something to the table. And getting back to that community building, that the community members, hopefully that they are, they know where Matilda lives and so on and so forth. So not that everyone's going to know everyone, but someone who's willing to put the energy in to make sure they're part of that community building and those connections and and they kind of represent, some kind of a constituency. Yes, that'd be I think one of the things we ought to strive for, and also the other expertise, and whether it's fire or police or whatnot, the county, different people with different levels of expertise, and make sure we've got the infrastructure and the connections. Sounds great. So the 5 commissioners would have.
Well, there'll be, once the council of 15 is formed, they will be charged with identifying 5 subgroups, of which I envision a commissioner member on each of one of the 5 subgroups according to subject matter.
Okay, subject
Okay.
matter, not geographic.
No,
but
subject matter. Because we have the geographic out districts here, which are brilliant because, like you say, they'd already been planned out. We just couldn't do that before. And so I think it's up to the council, and maybe with some input from us or whomever, to try to figure out what those for instance, I foresee communications being one. It would be a subject matter subgroup. I envision training being another, and you talked about not recreating the wheel. Well, that's where the Red Cross comes in, and because they're ready to go with that. I've already talked to Dale about that. I was so excited when I heard that because I didn't know the Red Cross did trainings. I guess I didn't bother to think how these people just arrive knowing what to do. Well, they're volunteers who've been trained, duh. And so that was just very, very nice. And so whatever subgroups, the 5 subgroups that want to do it, Mark has a military background, and you've been involved in situations, emergency situations, and he may be able to offer, something, to the conversation on that as well. But you know what I like? I like it that it's emergency management and PGA. I think that's just a really wonderful, unique partnership going forward with this. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is still like putty being formed. There's nothing, there's nothing set in stone, except for the fact that I would like to move forward on this with the board's approval. Does anybody have any other comments on this?
So today you're approving the concept, and then staff will come back with the scope, bylaws, and do all that for your final approval before recruitment begins.
And how do we approve that, Gary?
So assuming you go say yes today, I'll ask staff to come back before the August recess. So you have 4 weeks to come back with a scope, bylaws, and a recruitment plan, so the board can approve it before they go on recess. And then we start recruiting.
Is that okay, board?
Yeah, one other little thought that I have, I don't know
Yes.
if this goes within the scope, but I think it might be good for us to think about it. If the commissioners are going to have one issue area, it might be good for us to also have, plan out ahead of time, sort of a geographic zone. I know during the pandemic that when COVID first hit, that sort of happened naturally, and the legislators were connecting with some school districts, and we just created this communication chain that then went back to the chair and then to the administrator. Because when we're in the middle of an emergency, commissioners cannot be calling our administrator. We have to be the ombudsman, getting the information from the community, connecting with the chair, and then the chair, so to streamline his communication, then he connects with emergency management. And we might just want to think about what naturally seems to fit. Where would our connections be so that we can streamline that? And hopefully we don't have to execute that sort of command structure, but we really should think about it. I'm assuming if we have a major emergency, we'll just do it like that because we'll just work with.
There is a protocol set up for the emergency situation, but then as we go forward, depending on the emergency, I am not, for instance, during the ice storm, you know, Gary was able to contact me. The email to me was a little bit delayed on my phone. I had to do everything on my phone because none of this stuff was working, able to get back. Then I tried calling my other commissioners, and it always didn't go through. So, but a communication structure between us is really important.
Yep.
And maybe that can come out of, as this council goes forward, one of the 5 subgroups. And I'm sure that, you know, I've been getting emails from people. Oh my gosh, I'm getting personal emails saying, you know, we need to do emergency management and da-da-da. And these really qualified people who've been doing this for 15 and 20 years are telling me, you know, you need to do this and this and this and this. Those are exactly the type of people I'd like to see on the council. Yeah, Paul.
I just want to say we're, typical emergency management, the county commissioners are not part of the command structure. We're
Right.
part of the communication structure, maybe for ourselves and administration, but that's up to the
Absolutely.
structure in place. So
Absolutely.
we have to acknowledge that. And I think for every kind of disaster, there's going to be a little bit different nature of what that structure looks like, I imagine.
Gary, your card is up.
Yeah, so you actually have an approved command structure, both when an emergency occurs, the order of, what's the term? The order of succession for commissioners. It starts with the chair if you're unavailable, the vice chair if you're unavailable, commissioner in order of your seniority down the list. And if none of you are available, then it comes to me. If I'm not available, it will now be, well, Nancy, second Nancy. If Nancy's on it, and there's a whole, just like the succession for the U.S. presidency, there's a whole list that maybe it's good we remind this new board, because this new board's not seen that. The prior board did, so that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
And everybody's been trained on the emergency declarations and gone through that training. I know I had that opportunity when I was a new elected official.
And you went through it many times this year in real life, so.
Any other comments on this? So do we have approval to move forward, board? Mark, do you have any comments? You've been quiet.
Yes, I encourage you, as you get this going, to make sure you don't forget, like Commissioner Fisher mentioned, the role of the CPOs and the hamlets, because they are working hard to get themselves organized, and they can fit right into this emergency preparation council.
Yeah, thanks. Certainly.
Thank you very much. Wonderful.
All right, we got the head nod. So in the next 4 weeks, team, please come back with bylaws and scope of work for the board to approve. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, you have 30 minutes now, commissioners. I propose you go back to the issues list.
Yes.
And that would be approval of a Metro advance for supportive housing services. Our staff has done a lot of work in the last 2 hours. Can report back to you what they've discovered. So Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, Stephen Madcourt, County Counsel, Andrew Naylor, County Counsel's Office. Come on down.
Oh,
Okay, can I just say something first, Chair?
yes, go ahead,
Yeah,
Paul.
I just wanted to say, I think your comments earlier before the meeting started about the surprise, I was a little, not unpleasantly surprised, but I was a little bit surprised that this had moved along. Obviously, between the NACO conference and trips, we've been wanting to have a discussion amongst the task force. So I think legal staff and everyone here were doing the job they were supposed to do and come back with the agreement. for the housing services, right? So what caught me by surprise was the fact that the foresight, only the foresight of the 5 million or the total was not thought through as far as incorporated in that. I just didn't want to preclude or run the suggestion that we were limited to 3, but the agreement, not the agreement, but the plan was to go for the 3 now, not changing that, but reserve the option for the other 2 when needed or if needed. And that was stated when Martha and I made the presentation.
Well, that was stated, that's fine. I understand that, but just because we approved the 3 today, which staff had already teed up, it does not mean that we can't go for 2 or even more later.
Yeah.
And maybe Metro says, okay, you're doing well, we can advance you another, whatever we need to get the program running. If tax revenues look like they're coming in. I have great angst paying interest on this. The interest, the amount of interest we'll pay on $5 million is probably, what?
$221,000.
$221,000. And what does that equal to as far as beds are concerned, or homeless services for a person? That's probably 3 people.
If we go 2 years.
If we go 2 years on $5 million, there's a big unknown factor here. County council and others seem to be confident that it's coming in. Anyway, Gary, what's up?
All right, so Stephen or Andrew or
Yeah.
Elizabeth, tell us what you've been able
Sure.
to accomplish in the last 2 hours.
What we had before you initially was a $3 million advance from Metro, and you directed us to go see if we could renegotiate up to $5 million. Despite Metro's CFO being out on vacation, Metro was very gracious and accommodating and did agree to up to $5 million. You can get your $3 million right now with the terms that we had discussed beforehand, and you could do a call at your discretion on the other $2 million, and that's when interest would begin to accrue on that up to another $2 million. It doesn't commit you to go up to 5. You could do 4.1. You could do 4.5. You could leave it at 3. But you would have the $3 million immediately available at the rates we talked about, which is $64,000 interest per year. And if after a period of time you wanted the other $2 million, you wanted to tap into that, that'd be available to you. So Metro, I will give them kudos for being very responsive to our request. That was really a last-minute request. So that is the agreement that you have before you right now, and we are asking that one of these get forwarded to the consent agenda on Thursday, whether it's $3 million or the 3 plus the 2 up to 5.
Thank you, Stephen. I
Yep.
appreciate that. On page 1, the very last whereas, the last line says, with the option to advance an additional $2 million upon written request by Clackamas County. And on page 2, agreement number 4, there is additional language there. Clackamas County may, in its administrative discretion, request an additional $2 million. It says what we need to do, and it's subject to the terms and agreement of terms and conditions of this agreement. Commissioners, do we have any comments on this moving forward?
That's
This
great work.
This is what I understood we were doing, so.
Yeah, and I'm going to make
Exactly.
clear again, Commissioners, just because we could approve the $3 million this morning and still gone ahead with trying to get another 2, do I hear a motion?
I move approval of the agreement presented this afternoon with the $2 million option.
Second.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Savas to approve this agreement for an advance for Metro, and seconded by Commissioner Fisher. Is there any other comment? Hearing none. Christina, please call the poll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you, staff, for your very quick turnaround. I appreciate it very much, what you were able to do.
Good, so we're going to Thursday's consent agenda on this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Give kudos to Andrew and
job.
Elizabeth Comfort for their good work.
You betcha. Gary, what's up next?
All right, well, let's just stick with this topic. Commissioner Fisher wanted to give a supportive housing services update.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. So on last Thursday's Commissioner Communication, I let folks know that I was wanting to bring this up today to give an update on some of the different moving parts that have been going on. Wanted to make sure that that we are all, that nobody's surprised, basically, Chair Smith, wanting to make sure that we are being transparent in our communications. So just some context, the commission approved a statement, a policy that said that we are moving forward with our local implementation plan, that homeless services is very important, and we were going to proceed with our procurement process and implement the local implementation plan. That relieved a lot of angst out there in the community. Commissioner Savas and Commissioner Schrader went and presented to us an initial 10 million start, and in my review of working with staff, it's my understanding, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, this program has always been, even when it was the local implementation plan to be fully funded, was always going to ramp up with smaller to begin, and I don't have those actual numbers now, but it's smaller to begin, of course, because you're ramping up and then moving forward. The piece that has become very clear to me as I've been somewhat of a liaison with folks in the community and also in talking with our staff and being the person that presented this on the Metro Oversight Committee and to the Metro Council is that it's very important that our staff have some certainty in what they are saying is available to go out in that procurement process. So our interest in ramping up is good and it's correct, but there's been a lot of things going on that I want to let you know about, having conversations with folks outside the county to look at other options for bridge financing. I don't want to get ahead of this commission. I've just been exploring. So I want to let you know some of the things that are possible is partnerships with potential healthcare entities to help with some of that bridge funding. Sort of my thought with this is we have a lot of responsibilities as a county government. We have limited resources that we need to make sure that we have in case there are. We just had our emergency management. We hope we don't have a major emergency, but we may have one, and we have to be nimble, we have to be flexible. So what I would like, if I have two asks today, I would just like to give direction, have us give direction to staff, because I think it's important. We've had a lot of discussion, but we haven't been very clear in our direction of, and I think Commissioner Savas and Commissioner Schrader did really talk about this when they presented it, that their option was to start and then it would kind of expand. It's kind of like I have pants that stretch as more resources fill in. It's like we have to build a system that can stretch. And so I would like first just that understanding that I'm engaging, and I know that staff would like to engage in some conversations to look at other resources for additional dollars outside of Clackamas County. That's my first ask, and that would be with possibly Kaiser has suggested Health Share of Oregon, and then another option, I had conversations back in DC with health insurance provider Aetna, and there may be others, but I don't want to move forward farther without the blessing of this board for potentially private resources. So that's my first ask, and then I have another one after that.
Okay, do you want to present them all? Do you want it to us to address these at one at a time?
Yeah, this is the first. I mean, I would just like the blessing of the board so that
Well,
I can
is
work
there,
with
is
staff
your
on
second
this.
request tied to the first one in any way?
It's tied to supportive housing services.
Well, isn't the additional resources from Aetna and Providence for supportive housing services?
Yes.
And, well, then go ahead, what's your second one?
Well, do we want to talk about that one first?
No, we want to talk about the second one. I want to know everything before I make any commitments on anything.
Okay, sure. So the other piece that I do not have, I was hoping to have good information. I've been doing some research and working on it, and Commissioner Savas and I were on a call yesterday to get more information on how procurement works with H3S, and we're,
The staff meeting.
staff meeting, we're getting, it's layers upon, we're getting a better foundation. But one piece that I have found to be really challenging, so we get all this COVID relief dollars that came into the county, and we were basically able to jumpstart the supportive housing services measure with all that additional money. People went into hotels, motels, which was the largest cost that we have of the current service delivery system. And also, we had a one-year grant from Kaiser to house like 150, is that right, individuals Commissioner Savage, you might remember exactly, people that were elderly and people with disabilities. So all of that was sort of turbocharged during COVID. And now we're at the place where staff has been working really hard to transition people as they can with the limited resources that have been available into permanent housing. But what I am wanting us to look at is that was COVID that created that situation, and now we're in recovery. We are in recovery, and I really appreciate the boards. I really wish I would have been here for last week's conversation on ARPA, but I wasn't. I was back in DC. I do absolutely support where this board is going. We have so much consensus on what it means to recover. But what I would like this board to do, I wish I had the information to actually present, but I would like us to direct staff to look at what is it about what we received during COVID for the COVID emergency, and what does it look like in recovery, so we can add some additional dollars, ARPA dollars, to our supportive housing services measure. And I don't know what that looks like, but I would like this board to direct staff to make us a proposal that is, that we can consider as part of our ARPA allocation. So those are my two asks. I'm really wanting to get us closer to implementing the local implementation plan.
Well, you know, we all would,
that was-
Commissioner Fisher, and this is what I'm going to say yet again for the, I don't know how many dozens of times. The money will come in when it comes in for the supportive housing services measure. You want to yet take ARPA dollars and put it for housing, and you have asked that many times. Do we have an opinion back from staff or council if we can do that?
Do we have that, Nancy? I'm not sure we do.
We've done this so many times. It feels like we've just traveled down this road so many times.
I know, and to me, it's a waste of staff time for, go ahead.
So for sheltering, it has to be related to COVID sheltering. So we can do sheltering, we need to determine what that would look like. Stephen is still not sure we can do wraparound services that related to that. So when it comes to sheltering, that is in.
What does
our-
sheltering mean?
It's not housing, it's sheltering. So if we.
Is our hotel room sheltering?
That is a form of sheltering.
Okay,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
they're also extremely expensive when we're trying to get
Yes,
out
ma'am.
of that model.
Right.
And that's why this board today approved the $3 million with an additional $2 million to get those people out of the more expensive model and get them into something that's more affordable, correct? I'm thinking?
There's still a lot of people through our nonprofits that are being funded with hotel motel. And the communities.
Well, they probably will be for a while until all of the tax money starts coming in. Yeah, we have millions supposedly coming, and I don't know that we can do any more with the ARPA money for housing at this time.
So I would like to propose that we direct staff, and this board needs to do it. We've talked around it, but we haven't given that direction, as Gary Schmidt has told me, to really make the nexus for us and the connection so that we can make an informed decision. Because when they do that procurement process, they need to know how much money they're dealing with. And at $10 million, they don't have resources to do more than what we've been currently doing, than what COVID provided for us. And that's something that this board needs to understand as we're moving forward.
Okay, you've just confused me because you wanted ARPA dollars and now you've gone to the 10 million, which has already been allocated for procurement. So you're asking me two different situations and I'm not sure. This is confusing.
It is
I think that you have intentionally confused it because
No, I
we
don't.
know, this board knows, based on advice from legal counsel and staff, that we cannot use ARPA dollars for housing at this time until more rules from the U.S. Treasury comes down, which will not be available to us in August, was my initial understanding. If that opens up, you know what, we can take a look at it again. But now you're asking for procurement to do what again?
Okay, let me make and it might be that Commissioner Schrader and I intentionally looked at what is coming down from Treasury, what can ARPA be used for, and can absolutely be used for recovery out of the pandemic, of which transitioning from those programs that were funded with CARES dollars and helping us recover. That's absolutely a nexus. I've talked with Stephen, he's not here. But we don't have the nuts and bolts from staff. So I would just like this commission to request those nuts and bolts from staff, because I, as the liaison for supportive housing services and the person that has committed on the record that we are moving forward with our local implementation plan based on the communication of this board.
Okay, stop. I take great exception to your last statement, in that you've set yourself aside apart from the other commissioners as being the one who has made a commitment to the LIP. We have all made a commitment to the LIP. I think with the addition of Commissioner Savas and Commissioner Schrader have enhanced that project.
Absolutely.
I think staff is clear. I think Joe Smith has ample instruction to move forward with our very limited funds. I do think a plan is in place. I'm not sure what you're asking for staff to do unless you're thinking that there's some pot of money there that we can grab and put in here, which I don't see.
Okay.
At this point, unless we're going to go back to number one, Aetna and Providence.
Yep. I want to look into that, but there is absolutely a nexus between the CARES dollars received during COVID and supportive housing services and our staff, and they're not here, but they need to plan, and it's helpful for them to know what dollars they're dealing with. And all I'm asking of this board is that we, sorry about that, Paul, is that we direct staff to get us that information. That's it, Tootie, that's all.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, I've had my card up a while.
You know, I didn't see it.
That's okay, it's okay, you're okay,
Yeah.
you're okay, no harm done. So, Commissioner Fisher, I just want to make sure that you remember that the statement that we read, that we crafted and we read and we approved unanimously, I believe, about implementing LIP included the words ramp up, that we were going to ramp up. Right? So is there any doubt, do you have any doubt that we're not doing that?
I know that even the original plan was going to be a ramp.
No,
up.
that's not my question. My question is that
Yes, I have.
is that, do you believe that staff and this commission are committed to that ramp up?
I believe that the commission is committed to the ramp up. I believe that staff, and I know this to be true because I've had conversations with staff, are only looking at a very limited amount of dollars, which is the 10 million, and without direction from this board, they can't do anything additional, which is putting the whole program
Okay.
into jeopardy.
So please, just follow me through this. So staff, Gary Schmidt, our administrator, they are implementing what this board directed them to do as far as that statement and the 10 million that we all unanimously approved for the financing for that ramp up with the dollars available. So you agree with that, right?
No, the 10 million gets us to actually just do no harm with what we're currently doing because of the additional dollars we received from COVID. It does not allow us to have any additional dollars.
So
for
Commissioner Fisher,
further
Commissioner,
procurement.
you're reframing my question or my point. My point is that we are borrowing money, right? We're augmenting some existing funds, and we put together, and went to staff as the Administrators Housing Task Force. We asked staff what they needed, the bare bones minimum to get this thing started and to implement the LIP. And we started with that, right? So we have a procedure in place. Come August, September, we'll know what the next ramp up is, and then we'll be able to have more dollars. That's the plan as we laid it out. Now, I don't know what other if Aetna or whoever these other folks want to bring money to the table that is not a loan, okay?
I want to look at.
If they want to bring money, and you can, you got my blessing, with no strings. They want to help us implement and get things going, great. But staff has explained a very complicated situation with FEMA dollars that were funding the hotels, okay? Not CARES Act dollars, but FEMA, I'm misspeaking?
That's correct.
Okay? And all of these funding streams are extremely complicated. We've made our goals and our questions clear, and I think our staff, not all are here today, but a lot of them are here today, seem to understand and have explained that something extremely complicated and distilled it down to I have confidence in what they're doing. And I think that when we keep on regurgitating and telling them to go back and basically, I don't know, reconfigure or restate or change their opinions, I'm at a loss. I find it a little bit frustrating because I know they're frustrated as well, frankly. We're all frustrated because once we have clear direction, we want to just turn it upside down, like every week. And this is kind of demoralizing for all of us.
Nobody should be demoralized.
No, all of us are. I'm demoralized.
No, don't
I'm hearing,
be
no, I'm
demoralized.
hearing our staff are, because we're doing everything we can.
Gary suggested that this board give clear direction on that piece. So that's
What's
why I
not,
was
what's not
asking.
clear?
Gary, why don't you explain why
What's
we're
not
bringing
clear?
this up
Someone
today?
tell me what is not clear.
Commissioner Fisher and I have had many discussions where she is concerned that perhaps staff is not understanding the direction of the board and implementing our next steps on supportive housing. I've explained I feel that we are, that staff is. I am ultimately responsible for staff, and if I am in any way misinterpreting or misunderstanding your direction, I want to know about it. And this happens all the time, not just this board, prior boards I've worked with. There's not always clarity, so we always come back to the full board to say, can you clarify exactly what your intent was so that staff has clear direction?
Yeah.
And so I feel staff has clear direction, but if even one commissioner feels not, then I encourage Commissioner Fisher to bring it up in front of her colleagues.
Well, is
So
there
this is
clear-
what we're, so.
Let me just ask a question, Chair Smith, please. Is there clear direction that staff explained to the board the nexus between the CARES dollars that we received and how we're recovering? Because I don't think we have not received that information. So that's what I'm asking for.
We don't need to receive back information. We have given direction to staff, which I believe they are carrying out. We don't need to have staff say, oh, I got your instructions and we're doing
Well, is that
X,
part
Y,
of the
Z.
instructions? Because that's what I understood we were doing through approving the plan for the
No.
10 million, that we were going to be looking at all resources and potentially ARPA, and we haven't received that back as
But
a
we
board.
have, Commissioner Fisher, I respectfully disagree with you. We have received that. I am prone today to table this discussion until Martha comes back and you and her can get together, whatever information you received at NACO. Obviously, the people who didn't go aren't aware. So I'm going to wait until Commissioner Schrader can weigh in on whatever new information that happened at NACO. As far as reaching out to Aetna or Providence or any other providers, fine. If it, like Commissioner Savas said, as long as it's not a loan, as long as there's not strings attached, as long as they're not coming in and telling us how to do our business, that's fine. If they want to give grant money to the Housing Authority or to H3S to care for any of this, I am all for that. However, if that money is available, why haven't they come to us sooner and already offered it, knowing that the Metro situation, the tax situation is in crisis? But if you want to reach out to them, go ahead. We are not going to instruct staff to do anything more today until we have either more money to spend or some new law comes in or all of a sudden ARPA says, you have our blessings to go do housing. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, so I think staff has explained to me satisfactorily. You got to remember, we're a Board of County Commissioners. We're not here to micromanage. We're not technicians at this. We're not the experts. I trust our staff to do that. I think that we've got to do that. I think we have to trust our staff. And we got to show that we have, and we support them. And I think this kind of thing, I think conveys the wrong message. I'll be honest with you. It does.
Which kind of thing?
This re-questioning and the regurgitation of the same thing, like they didn't communicate to us, or we don't understand it.
Oh, I don't mean to do that.
That's how it comes.
Thank you for that.
No,
I appreciate that.
But that's how it feels.
So,
That's how, if I may,
Yeah,
Commissioner Fisher,
please.
if I may, I just want to tell you sequentially how I see things unraveling, not unraveling, but rolling out. That is that we approved the letter to the feds for the ARPA
Yeah.
guidance. We're expecting a response hopefully by August, somewhere, hopefully.
Mid-August, yep.
Okay, August, we'll get a response back from them. We'll know what we can spend the dollars on and what we cannot spend the dollars on. We'll also have some more information on what the disbursements are from Metro, from the Metro housing dollars. When Commissioner Schrader gets back, I was hoping she'd be back today, but she had a flight, scheduling issue. We would have met this week. And maybe we still can meet this week. And to at least, as the Administrators Task Force group, to sit back and figure out any recalculations that need to be done. But we're all over this. And I think if you could just give us, the task force, the confidence that we understand it, and convey to all of us and staff that we understand it, and we, I think that stability and that assurity that we understand this is something I think we all need. Granted, I have a couple things in the task force I'd like to share with Commissioner Schrader and staff and get some questions answered so we can have a little bit more clarity. That's coming. So I'm not saying that I'm an expert at this. I'm not saying I understand it fully, but I also understand I'm a commissioner. I'm not a staff person. And I understand the roles. And right now I think that this is just adding a lot more stress and confusion. And I think, frankly, our constituency out there, including our nonprofits, are getting mixed messages. I think that confuses it even more. I know the pain they're going through. They've been propped up to think that there's all this money coming in, and they're left with very little to none. That's not a fault of yours. It's not a fault of mine or this commission or staff. It's just the situation we have. But please just give people the space to do the work. They need to do a work plan. They need to get these IGAs negotiated so we can operate, so we can accept the dollars when they come. We've got a lot of work to do. They need some time to get that work done.
The overall concern that I have is that I didn't know this at the time that we approved it, but the $10 million does not allow for a procurement process out in the community.
What do you mean it doesn't allow? What does that mean?
Because will only fund the existing.
There's only 10 million there. Divided by 12, divided by 12, divided by 12, divided by 12 months, there's X amount of dollars to be spent. There's no prohibition on what they spend it on. It was guided by the conversations we had with what our priorities were, and we didn't want to put anyone out on the street or anything else. So they listened.
But it doesn't get people out of homelessness, except it keeps them.
It's only $10 million.
It's only $10 million. You know what? I don't know how many times you can spend $10 million. I don't know how many different times you can spend $3 million, but when my math comes, you can only spend it once. And you can't keep borrowing, and you can't keep going in debt. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes. Last month, when we looked at the budget and discussed the lack of funds coming in from Metro, what we decided was to ensure that the people who are currently being housed stay that way, and they're not put out under any threat of being put out. So we looked at that $10 million. We just going to ask for another $3 million to augment that to get us into late fall, when we'll be able to see, hopefully, more SHS dollars coming in. Then we reassess where we're at. But the whole thing last month was to make sure not to ramp up and increase our expenditures, but just to maintain what we have so that people who are currently being housed under supportive housing are not under any threat of having to be put out.
Right.
So that's where we're at until maybe, like Paul said, September, October, when we look at it again, see where the money is, and then we can reassess.
The only thing I would just my only commentary is that I think part of the reason that $10 million is not going to go as far as it can is that this hotel model, in my opinion, granted, whatever shelter is shelter and everything else, but it's so darn expensive. It's been very problematic. I won't even get into all the law enforcement issues and police calls, but frankly, this hotel model is a disaster, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely is. So
I mean,
usually
it's absorbing more than half of the $10 million. Now, just think for a minute, if we had a different model and we weren't burning up $5.2 or $5.4 million of this 10, on this. That is the most expensive thing, and the staff has recognized that. They're making all the initiatives they can to, to ramp that down and get people transitioned out. So they're doing the best they can. Granted, they could do more if they had more money, and that's what we're all hoping for. More money, the sooner the better. If you can find it, bring it on. If those folks want to contribute some dollars to us, I'm sure our staff will find a way to do it.
I would agree with that. We are not going to instruct staff to drink anything more. Commissioner Fisher, if you want to reach out to Aetna and Providence, I really appreciate you doing that. That may be something that we had not considered when you first asked me about that, whenever it was, last week or this week. I don't remember. I thought, you know what? Hey, let's try to turn over every rock to see if there's anything out there we can do. And if we want to get together and meet with some officials from, and I'm not totally closing the door on that, because I did have a meeting with Providence via Zoom and their directors, and I vaguely remember them saying something about wanting to help with the homeless situation, but I don't remember what that was. So I think Emily may have that contact information. If Emily, you're listening, maybe you can assist Commissioner Fisher in that, or a route to follow, or Kimberly can help with that too. But I am just real hesitant right now to have staff do, especially the housing folks, because let's face it, they're exhausted, they're tired. We're finally trying to bring all of our employees back to work at the county buildings who want to. People are transitioning in and out. Some people are still working at home. And so I think we need to be mindful, commissioners, that this county is still transitioning with our own workforce. And we need to be mindful that whereas we're thinking here, we're gearing up and we want to do all these things, we have to allow our staff to come and do their jobs. They have been doing their jobs, but there still is, a transition for some folks out there. I think that's important, especially summer. We're finally open from COVID after how many months? People want to get out there and enjoy themselves. And let's face it, there's some folks on vacation this week and last week and maybe next week. They're going to start finally being able to enjoy vacation, which they so desperately deserve. So I would just kind of back off on that. Did you have anything more you wanted to say? No. Gary, what do you recommend that's next?
Well, on this topic, as you said, Chair, wait till Commissioner Schrader's back next week and the board can discuss again.
I know you didn't get what you wanted.
No, this is good. I actually appreciate, truly honestly, the recommitment and conversation, because this is a priority for all of us, and finding a way through is really important. So it helps create clarity. So thank you, Chair Smith.
You bet. You're welcome. Anything else? Gary, are we going to do our 2:30 policy session?
Cindy, are our guests here?
They are on Zoom.
Okay, they should have been here in the room. But we will allow an exception this one time, Chair Smith?
Well, what? No.
Sorry.
My apologies. My understanding was I was to be here in person. I did not realize that extended to our guests.
Yes.
My apologies.
Well,
Everyone.
who are the guests?
Bridget Daisy from Clackamas Workforce Partnership and David Green from Citizens Bank, who is also the CWE chair.
How did they not get the memo?
It was a miscommunication, so it's not their
Completely
fault.
on me, Chair Smith.
Okay.
My apologies.
Okay.
Okay, let's
Okay.
just get it
We'll
done.
go
then.
for, no worries, Cindy. Come on forward, Cindy. All right. The next policy, so we still have a few more issues. We'll come back to that over our next breaks. Next session is Clackamas Workforce Partnership Budget and Strategic Plan Update. Cindy Moore is from Economic Development and Business and Community Services. She will tee it off. Please introduce our guests who are on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, thank you.
Yes, yeah, as long as the green light is on, you're good.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Smith, Commissioners, and Administrator Schmidt. As Gary mentioned, I am Cindy Moore, Economic Development Coordinator with Business and Community Services Economic Development Division. Today, I am here via Zoom with Bridget Daisy, Executive Director of the Clackamas Workforce Partnership, and David Green, who is with Citizens Bank, who also serves as the Clackamas Workforce Partnership Board Chair. The purpose of today's policy session has two parts. First is for CWP, as I will refer to them for the rest of my comments here, to provide their annual budget report and strategic plan update. CWP is designated to serve as the Workforce Investment Board for Clackamas County. There is a partnership agreement included in your packet that outlines the roles and responsibilities for each party. One of those items in the agreement is the update that you are receiving today. The second purpose is for the role that CWP plays in our community with the WorkSource Clackamas office. The Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act requires that the local Workforce Investment Board, the county, and the service providers in our local area enter into an infrastructure funding agreement, or IFA, providing for allocation of the center's infrastructure costs. You might recall that the WorkSource Clackamas office is down off the High Street in Oregon City. The IFA ensures that all service providers located in or making use of the center contribute to the operational costs of the facility. No county resources are required for the center or for the IFA, and a copy of the IFA is included in your packet. Today, CWP is asking for approval to place the IFA on a future business meeting agenda for approval. I am proud to serve on the CWP board, as workforce development has very close ties to what we do in economic development on behalf of the county. Our staff has regular coordination meetings to best align our services to the business community and to the job seekers in Clackamas County. With that, I will turn our presentation over to Bridget and Dave, and thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for allowing us to present today. With me is Bridget Daisy, the Executive Director of Clackamas Workforce Partnership, and I am the outgoing chair. I've just finished a 2-year term as chair of the Workforce Board, and am continuing on as the past chair, but agreed to join Bridget today to go over our presentation and our request. I can't see slides on my screen, so do we have a presentation? Cindy, do you know if that's
Yes, we do have a presentation.
available? Okay. Well, I think this was sent along earlier as well. The first slide is a reiteration of the definition of a workforce board and the 13 functions under WIOA of the Board of Directors. And these are all things that we've been working under for a number of years now. The thing that strikes me as a member of the private sector and as a member of a locally owned community bank is the public-private partnerships that are at the core of the way workforce boards run under WIOA. The mandate that 51% of the Board of Directors that helps oversee this process comes from the private sector, which I think is an important feature, and I know that that's an important strength that the board brings into the work that it does every day. And then, Bridget, I think you're going to present the next few slides under the sources and uses in our current funding.
Yes, thank you so much, David. And as David mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of Clackamas Workforce Partnership. I use she, her pronouns. And also on slide 2, you'll notice that there is a link to a video. That's a Workforce Board 101. It was created at the federal level. And you can watch it at your own time in your own home, but it gives you a good sense of what the local workforce board's deliverables are and how we operate. The third slide is our organizational structure. So Clackamas Workforce Partnerships Board is, again, predominantly 50% private sector. We have a 20% mandate for trade, labor, and apprenticeship programs, also including youth-facing programs. We have an education requirement, public services requirement, and then other nonprofits. And so right now we hover around slide back. Thank you. We hover around a 23 to 25 member board because of those ratios that we have. The board of directors guides the 8 staff that we have and 1 intern that we have on staff right now. And the local workforce board oversees the public workforce system, which in our case is WorkSource Clackamas. which makes up a combination of organizations. Now, WorkSource Clackamas includes many more organizations than what you see listed here, but those that you see listed here are those that are funded through Title IB funds, through the WIOA, or the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds. All of the links to the funds and the resources underneath, the NDWG, disaster recovery, the training and workforce experience, those are all grants. And you can link to more information about those grants on our website. And also indicated here is the IFA. So the IFA is the partnership agreement between us as a funder as well as other funders of the public workforce system, WorkSource Clackamas. Next slide. So also mandated as one of our 13 functions is to create a strategic plan. So what this shows you is our process, the timeline. We actually were doing work in 2020, and this should have been approved in 2020, but when COVID hit, so too did everything else was paused. And so we've been seeking public engagement, going back to our board of directors, going back to our stakeholders to find out, are we still on the right track? What needed to shift about our plan? And our plan has gone through our local workforce board's review, as well as the state workforce board's review. They will be finalizing, they approved everything and to be finalized by June of next year, because there's still some outstanding things that are that way for other local workforce areas. And so we're waiting for guidance from the state and a little bit more direction in order to finish those few points. But it is finalized for our state local workforce plan. And so the last part is to get your approval and signature on our local strategic plan. Next slide. So this covers our mission, vision, and values as a board. We stand at the cusp between people, business, and community. And so as David alluded to, that public-private partnership is really, it is everything that we do. We really seek to bring and collaborate and bring folks together around the same table. Again, you can see all our entire report and strategic plan at our website. Next slide. A few key areas of our strategic plan. We have 3 strategic plan goals, and you'll see the big buckets: business, people, and then systems awareness and alignment. There is an increased need for us to think about people from birth all the way through as spectrum, as opposed to bifurcating conversations. And so that's why we joined the People for our youth and adult programs together to ensure that all people are competitive in a 21st century economy and reach their full potential to meet their employment needs. Our business goal, aligning public and industry partners to enhance workforce recruitment, retention, and advancement. And our systems awareness and alignment goal, which is new to our organization, but we're really excited about it, is to create a workforce ecosystem with public-private partnerships of business, education, community-based organizations that actively invest in our systems change. And our systems must change to be able to be more responsive and ready for our 21st century economy. Next slide. And a few other things that also are captured in our strategic plan are, we have priority populations. WIOA mandates that we prioritize veterans and veteran spouses, people with disabilities, those that are receiving social service benefits, those that are considered low income or living in poverty, and adult basic skills deficient. In addition to those WIOA mandated populations, priority populations, the board and with stakeholder input added these additional populations: are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, families living in poverty, English language learners and limited English proficient, individuals with background issues or those that are justice involved, long-term unemployed, our youth and young adults ages 16 to 24, rural communities, women, our LGBTQ, trans, and non-binary communities, as well as people who are age 55 and older. And based on its most recent listening session, I would say that that's going to be a topic of many conversations in the coming months. Next slide. And I'll turn this back over to David.
Thank you, Bridget. What you see is a abstract, a high-level budget request for the coming year. Of note, about 76% of our total planned expenditures go directly into the community through contracts with direct service providers and the one-stop operator. Overall, the budget increased by about $384,000 for all funds, which is a 9% increase from the current year. And this is primarily new WIOA formula allocations increased 17% from the previous year. And we will benefit from being able to spread that funding across all the different partners that we have on that qualify for the WIOA funding. Those formula expenditures make up 49% of this budget, and another 32% come from one-time national dislocated worker, COVID, and wildfire disaster grants. CWP has $142,850 in awarded funds designated for future periods, including future years of multi-year state grants and $282,294 of WIOA carry forward funds. And of course, can provide all of the detailed fund by fund accounting. You wouldn't be able to read it on the screen because of the size that it would take to get it all on there, but certainly have the detailed budget submitted as well.
And the next slide, we wanted to share a little bit about our past year with the funds that Clackamas County invested in the Construction Careers Pathways Project. There was a $50,000 investment. We were able to serve eight participants. The eighth did drop out, but we are using other resources to engage other individuals. But we believe that if with increased investments that we'd be able to serve even more people in Clackamas County. Our hope is to have a pre-apprenticeship program available in Clackamas County as opposed to Clackamas County resident having to travel to Portland. So we're really excited about the things that we were able to do with this investment. So thank you so much. And I think that we have one more slide that says thank you. But I would like to say that if you have any questions about anything we shared, there are opportunities coming in the coming months, and I just wanted to get these things on your radar. So if you want to take notes and say, if I hear this again, there's going to be reasons connected to workforce or why workforce is interested. Construction Careers Pathways Project, that's going to continue to roll ahead. And again, we hope for additional investment for this coming year so that we can, again, expand pre-apprenticeship programs in Clackamas. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act is actually up for reauthorization. So if there is anything that needs to be changed based from the 2014 passed legislation, now would be a good time for us to talk about those things with our federal partners. The funds, increasing coordination across state, federal, and local resources is going to be very important. Again, for planning for a 21st century economy, but also preparing for whatever comes around, whatever's going to come next as far as something that we'll have to be responsive to. The supportive housing services measure that you were talking about before this presentation is really important to our community. If you want to solve workforce issues, let's house the houselessness or the houseless. There is an enormous need for people right now, and so we can't afford as an economy to have anyone sitting on the sidelines. And so we really want to make sure that we have as much support wrapped around people so that they can reach their full potential. And all of these things will be connected to this necessary systems change that I alluded to earlier. And that is the rest of our presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions for the presenters on Zoom or in the room? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair Smith, I approve that we adopt the report.
Yes.
Second.
Commissioner Fisher has moved to the adoption of the CWP budget presentation and strategic plan update, and Commissioner Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Gary?
Sorry, there's two items here. One is to do what you just did, but the second one is to put on your future consent agenda the infrastructure funding agreement.
So do we vote on the first motion?
You
and
can do
then
it
we-
separately, or you can do it together.
It says two, it says action one, action two, so I assume.
We do one
An
and then
action
two.
is
All right,
an
yep,
action.
that's fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
so let's take the vote on the current motion on the table. Christina, please call the poll.
Yes. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. We would now take action 2. Option 1.
I move to approve the placement of the IFA on the board's consent agenda.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Commissioner Savas and Fisher. Do we have any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, Christina, please call the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Is there anything else you would like to say?
No, ma'am. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today.
Great. And go forth and continue the good work. Thank you, Bridget Daisy and Dan Green, for your presentation and your dedication to this very important program. Gary?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. If you're okay, Chair, the next staff is here for the next policy session. If we could keep moving forward, is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine with
All
me.
right, so next is Section 125, Cafeteria Plan Document Approval. We have our team from Human Resources, Christy Durham, Benefits Manager, to present. Welcome, Christy, and go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Smith, Commissioners, and County Administrator.
Please pull your microphone closer. Thank you, Christy, that's nice.
You bet. Thank you. So today, I'm here before you to seek your approval of the Section 125 Plan document. It's also referred to as a cafeteria document. And Section 125 Plan, or a cafeteria plan document, is the legal instrument that the county uses in order to pre-tax contributions to the employee benefit plans. So that could be the medical, dental, vision, any of those, including voluntary benefits on a pre-tax basis. And also, we have an opt-out arrangement. So if an employee opts out of insurance, they're able to have cash in lieu of the benefits. Those go through this plan as well. And then also for flexible spending accounts for medical and for dependent care expenses, those also go through this plan document. What we're doing here is a housekeeping matter. We're just bringing things, making sure we have everything in compliance. We've worked with outside counsel to ensure that this is put together correctly, and it is ready to go. And so today, I'm here to answer any questions you might have, and also just seek your approval of option 1 to approve the document as we've presented it to you.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Christy on this?
Nope.
This is
Easy.
too dang easy.
I like to keep it easy for you guys.
Although there are a lot of pages.
There are a lot of pages.
Yes, and I'm certain that's in compliance with the regulations and so forth. And we did hire outside counsel at a cost of $3,415. Thank you very much. I understand why it was done. Well, I think I understand what was done. So with that in mind, I will accept a motion to approve option 1 of the Section 125 plan with no additional changes.
So moved.
Seconded.
Commissioner Fisher has made the motion and Commissioner Scholl has seconded. Do we want to wait for Commissioner Savas to return?
You don't need to. There's a quorum here.
There's a quorum here, but we also have time.
There's time, yeah.
What would you recommend?
Let's go forth and do good.
Okay, we'll go forth and do good. Christina, please call the poll.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 3-0. You are lucky today. You got out of here just like nothing.
Well, in just a brief moment, I do want to acknowledge Billy Hurley, part of my team, who
I see
did
her
a
back there.
tremendous
Are
amount
you
of
hiding?
effort making this happen for the county. So, thank you, Billy.
Thank you for all your work.
Or do we need to wait till 3:30?
No, we have back to the issues list, so.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
All right, thank you, Christy. Well done. All right, back to the issues list. Dan Johnson, you've been so patient. Come to the table, please. All right, next, Stafford area statement from the cities. Commissioners, I emailed this to you. Actually, you received this email on Friday, and I emailed it to you then as well. The mayors of Tualatin, Lake Oswego, and West Lynn sent you a joint statement they had all signed regarding the Stafford area and the urbanization of the Stafford area. In particular, to remind you, that no party will complete or adopt a concept plan for any part of the Stafford area until certain criteria are in place south of the Tualatin River having to do with the I-205 widening project, and until the end of 2028 for the area north of the Tualatin River. All things that were previously discussed with this prior boards and the cities regarding the three-party and then five-party intergovernmental agreements. In particular, the three cities are asking for you, Clackamas County Commissioners, to please provide notice to all the cities of any pre-application request and land use applications for conditional use permits and zone changes proposed for the Stafford Basin. Actually, that's something easily we can do, and Dan Johnson is the Director of Transportation to address that with you. Quickly, though, you also received just last night or this morning a letter from the Stafford Hamlet, the chair of the Stafford Hamlet, that I also forwarded to you this morning, which actually acknowledges the statement from the three cities and has a request as well, and that is that the Stafford Hamlet and the Tualatin Valley Community Planning Organization also receive notice of any land use or conditional use permits within the Stafford area, both from Clackamas County, but also from the three cities of their intent to do any work in those areas. The Stafford Hamlet has also offered, if you like, because they are an advisory board to you, commissioners, they're happy to review their statement from the cities and advise you on what you could or should do. So, not sure if that's necessary, but they're offering that as well if you want to take them up on it. So a lot is swirling around here in just the last few days, but the main question from the cities is, would you like staff to provide them notice of any land use or conditional use permits within the Stafford area?
Commissioner Savas.
My question is, so things are swirling around. What's going on that I don't know? I mean, there seems to be, there's an agreement. It's in writing. Is this simply a notice request? That's something that we missed? I thought maybe when I first read it, it was, maybe confusion over, if a landowner wants to develop something in the Stafford Triangle right now and it meets all the requirements, we can't stop that, right? They have I won't say a constitutional right, but they have a state legal right to develop their property. What level of permitting or applications or things are they looking for? I mean, if someone wants to remodel their patio cover, do they want that as well? Or what is the definition and how much labor or time is involved in that?
Thank goodness you asked. It's a fabulous question. Dan Johnson, Director of Department of Transportation Development. So first and foremost, I want to make sure we're very clear. This is simply, as in this request, it's simply around conditional use permits and zone changes. It's just those two types of applications, okay? Now, we do provide notice to cities if we have a development that is, for example, on the periphery of a city or that may be impacting the city or that's in the UGMA, the Urban Growth Management Agreement for a city primarily. This area kind of falls into that gray area. It's not in an UGMA area for the most part. And when we talk about this area, it's essentially that triangle, as you all are very warm and affectionately known as, that area, that triangle area that's kind of north of I-205 in that Stafford area. We currently do not have any requirement to provide additional notice in that area. When you talk about this notice, I want to be clear with the commissioners. Our intent is we have these one-off requests every once in a while, and we kind of have a one-off list. Our notice would simply be to provide them the cities an email notice if we get a pre-app or a conditional use, and if they wish to look at it, they can come in and take a look at it. This is not copying paper. This is not providing them copies of the file. It's simply a heads up that a zone change has come in for a particular area, in that particular area, or a conditional use has come up in that particular area. And that would be the extent of our notice, okay? Also, I want to make sure with these one-off requests, we make every attempt to make sure we provide notice, but I can't promise you we're going to be 100%. There's no ill will about that. There's no intention around that. But again, I want to say it's kind of one of these, as I quote, one-off requests. It's not a requirement of our ordinance to notify this particular area, but we can make every attempt to do so should the board request us to do so. It's not that much additional work if we simply limit it to an email.
But it is additional work. It is additional work. It's an additional step for some staff person to take.
That could be missed and
That
could be
could be
misconstrued.
missed.
So-
No. Don't even add that onto it. It is an additional step for somebody to take.
That is correct.
Okay, first of all, we have to determine when the request comes in for a zone change, for instance, what area and what city does it fall in? It's going to take time for staff to figure out if this goes to there. It says here in their language, provide notice to the cities of all pre-application requests. Now, to me, that's just not a simple land use zone. Of all pre-application requests and land use application for conditional use permits and zone changes proposed for the Stafford Basin. To me, that is a big request. Gee, do the cities want to reimburse our staff time for this? I don't see that offer made in here because I don't know how much activity is going on in this area. I would hope the cities, if you're listening today, would take the time to do the planning, to plan your area, because sitting back and not planning for the future is not planning. And I have offered that to Joe Buck, Jules Walters, and Frank Bubenek. I've talked to them personally about Stafford in that they should actively engage in planning for the future, because we have future generations coming up that would take advantage of affordable housing, for instance, of green spaces, of farming activities, of all the values that we hold near and dear. And I don't see a lot of activity from these three cities in doing that. So I, too, along with Commissioner Savas, question what is going on behind the scenes with this. And we just get a letter out of the blue. Gee, doggone it. How many times have I requested our elected officials, can you pick up the telephone and call me to see what's going on out there? We get slammed with letters. So, and number one says, we recognize the cities have strong interest in the well-planned Stafford Basin. Do they want to try to micromanage any of our land use processing? I suspect they do. Ensuring that the area develops in a compatible way. Please define for me what compatibility is. So I feel that this letter is fraught with landmines for us if we were to approve it today. However, I'm open-minded to what the board wants to do. But just know, if we approve this today, I would request that staff time be reimbursed from the cities who are requesting this. And it could be, as little as, $10 or as much as $100. It just is going to depend, I would suppose. And then, how are they going to answer that email? Are they going to be requesting more information on this from staff because they're the cities? And I don't want to be poking at these cities. I think the law is very clear on who is going to be taking care of this, but is there something going on out there that, Gary, do we know anything going on? Commissioner Scholl?
Chair Smith, a couple weeks ago I had a in-office talk with Bill Marked from the Stafford Hamlet. And there's pressure on the Stafford area for future growth because of where it's located. And especially south of Borland Road and north of I-205. And what Mr. Marked indicated was that the three cities, Tualatin, West Lynn, and Lake Oswego, one of their big concerns is that if development does go in that area, what is going to be the impact on traffic into their cities? That's a big concern for them. That might be part of what this letter's about.
Now, additionally, we have a request from the Stafford Hamlet. Would that be the gentleman that you talked to?
Yes, this is Bill Marked,
Okay.
yes.
And so that's another addition to this as well. I'm not so wanting necessarily to charge the hamlets because they're more of a volunteer organization, whereas the cities are professional municipalities with budgets. I just ask these questions and I present them to the board. Commissioner Fisher.
So it would seem to me that there's probably a lot of pressure to develop. One of the issues that prevented development was that the traffic, just as you said, in 205 being a real challenge, and the diversion and how everything's going to move and work, and how do you do your concept planning when you don't have I-205. But now that is keyed up to begin construction. So my thought is that's what's going on out there. There might be other things, but there's always been a lot of interest in developing, but also preserving the unique nature and character of the area. So that concept planning is really, really important. I don't see is it expensive to pass that along? I mean, what is the cost? Isn't it all public potentially anyway? Or is this like a public information request?
Well, yeah, when we get FOIA requests, to the board, there's a charge for that. Okay, because it tends to be some work involved. So I'm looking at this kind of in the same way.
Cost recovery.
A cost recovery, and you have told me more than once, cost recovery, we need to attach a fee to this. So are we consistent in that, or are we not? Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, if the cost is negligible, I don't think it's worth our effort to actually charge, because that would probably be just more costly just to administer the fee. So if it's nominal, then, but if it's something that is burdensome, then we should take a look at it. If the trigger is just the fact that I-205 is starting up fine, I thought, well, maybe it's Lusher Farm, that study that Lake Oswego asked us to, allow them to help us with, or them with. Maybe that was a trigger. I just didn't know. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of history, a lot of different opinions, a lot of different viewpoints on what the outcomes ought to be in that area. So I just didn't know. The only part of I-205 that has funding right now, just to make it perfectly clear, is the first phase of the Abernathy Bridge. So the remainder of that 5.8 miles is yet to be funded, but expected to be funded, obviously. We all hope, so.
Yeah, I don't know. Board members, what do you want to do? Gary?
I have a suggestion, Chair. Perhaps you could offer to meet with the three mayors and have a conversation with them first to find out kind of what they're thinking, what's on their minds before you take action.
I can do that, commissioners, or if you're comfortable with it, we can approve both requests today, or I can meet with them. It's really up to you what you want to do.
Well, you always do meet with them.
I do. I meet with them monthly, and this did not come up. Yeah, so.
We always have
And by
to
the
keep
way,
that
and
conversation.
it's usually the same ones that, it's usually Joe Buck, Jules Walters, and Frank doesn't usually, but the Wilson Bear Mayor usually do, and they're really good in attendance, too. So I don't know if they think they can't discuss it because the other mayors may be listening, which is really no big deal because it's all public stuff anyway. But Dan?
If you are to have that discussion, I think you brought up a very good point, which is the fact that county code applies. So though they may have concerns and they may wish to see city standards applied to these various projects, we don't have power within our code to convey that requirement from any independent city. And
That's
so
a good point.
You brought up that, and I think that there may be pressure, to be frank, in some of these land use applications, possibly for the cities to have a desire to implement some of their city standards, which would not be applicable within the current structure of our code.
So they better get a plan in.
Or annex it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, or annex it, because I think they want to be in the catbird seat, and I hope you're listening. I think they want to be in the catbird seat of dictating us what to do to maintain their livability standards, but yet they don't want to take the responsibility of either expanding the urban growth boundaries or providing services. So I don't have a problem telling them that either. I'm not exactly a novice to this issue. That is why I am very hesitant to approve this letter as it's presented to us today. So Commissioners, if you want me to go ahead and we'll arrange either a meeting or a Zoom. I suspect a Zoom might be better since these mayors are all volunteers and they have jobs. That'll make it easier on them. We can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, as long as we do address the letter at some point in time, following your meeting.
Yes, I will come back and report. I'm just not going to have a meeting and then think
Right.
everything is going to go away.
Right.
Yes, Paul, I do understand that. Gary?
All right, we'll set up a meeting with the chair and the three mayors, and we'll report back to you, board.
And any other questions that this board wants me to ask, please let me know.
Yeah, find out
Thanks,
what's
Dan.
going on out there, if it's
Yeah.
more than just the pressures of development.
All right, if it's all right, Commissioners, if we can go back to the policy sessions, because our team is here, and then we'll come back to issues after that. Is that okay, Chair Smith?
Yes, please, I'm just making notes.
Great. Next, prevention of workplace violence policy. We have Eric Machado, County Risk Manager from Human Resources, and just you, Eric, or Evelyn, you want to come up?
Please.
Evelyn Minor-Lawrence, Human Resources Director.
Did
Please
you
go
think
ahead.
that you were not going to get a come up, Evelyn? You make me laugh.
Well, you had me as invitation, so.
Okay.
I'm trying to be proper.
You're welcome.
Is
Go ahead.
Cindy on the Zoom? Okay. I'm not sure.
Is
No
Cindy on
Zoom, no Zoom.
No Zoom.
Go
okay.
ahead. Just you
I saw
two.
Zoom in there earlier.
Just you two.
So we're not doing Zoom anymore
Okay.
for these meetings. I hope everybody in our county.
Very well after today.
Yes.
Well, no. Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners and Administrator Schmidt. My name is Eric Machado, the County Risk Manager, and I'm here with Evelyn Minor-Lawrence, our HR Director. And we are here to ask for the approval of an update to the Prevention of Workplace Violence Policy. It's EPP 34. This policy has been in place since October of 1999 with regular updates over the years. As part of the Prevention of Workplace Violence effort, in 2016, a County Leadership Academy team completed a project that resulted in a variety of actions, including a board resolution affirming the county's commitment to preventing workplace violence, the creation of a workplace violence prevention team, development of policies, procedures, training, education, and awareness resources, creation of a template for department-level workplace violence prevention plans. More recently, the Workplace Violence Prevention Team has been working on what we call Workplace Violence 2.0, which includes the following: updates to the policy at issue today, new visitor sign-in procedures for the PSB and DSB, updates to the department workplace violence prevention template, an updated ID badge policy, mandated countywide and department training expectations, and security system improvements at all leased and owned county buildings. All of this has already been or will be implemented shortly. It will take a bit of time to install the additional hardwired pieces of the security system enhancements. It's known as the Alertus system. I'm sure you've heard of that. Once again, the purpose of today is to request board approval of the updated Prevention of Workplace Violence Policy and to answer any questions you might have.
Yes. I had an exchange of emails with Cindy Becker on this with some suggestions.
So those were added, but that was not this policy. Those were two draft policies that are yet to come forward that impact staff. So your suggestions were added to those policies.
But, okay, this is not this one right
This
here.
is different, right?
This is specifically EPP 34, the Prevention of Workplace Violence Policy, updates to that policy.
So, and what are the updates, Eric?
A lot of it is updating to our new policy template.
Which is?
Which is, yes, so the updates created by that. We renamed the policy itself to Prevention of Workplace Violence. Previously it was called the Workplace Violence Policy, prevention being the key term here. And again, most of the updates are what I would call administrative updates. We took out some things, examples that were in the previous policy, examples of workplace violence. It just doesn't fit. We defined some things additionally, added some responsibilities for departments,
Did we
elected
add,
officials, managers, and supervisors in this current policy. I don't have a copy of the red line, so I can't say specifically, but
did we
those are
add
the
any
main
groups to this, any subgroups to this?
any,
Subgroups, have we added any subgroups to this?
not that I'm
No.
aware of.
No.
No electeds, no volunteers.
They're in here, the electeds.
The policy applies, it does say in the second sentence, the second sentence of the first section, purpose, the policy applies to all Clackamas County employees, elected officials, volunteers, vendors, and contractors.
Okay. All right. Any other further
That's why you're
questions?
approving this, because it applies to you.
Correct.
That's why this is before you.
That's what I wanted you to say.
It applies to everyone in this room. Yes.
And volunteers.
And
volunteers.
volunteers, that is correct.
Any play, the way I look at it is anybody who works here. It's
Yeah, but
intended to
volunteers
protect the
not
workplace.
necessarily defined as work, although they work very hard.
Sure.
But because they're volunteers, we think work has to do with employees. But I want to make sure our volunteers work hard, and therefore they are included in this policy.
They are included in the policy.
Thank you.
And we're bringing it before you because of the elected officials and volunteers being included.
Good. Do we have any comments for the presenters on this today?
So question, I'm just looking through because I always like to know what my responsibility is. And this says that we are to implement and maintain individual department plans by location, coordinate department plans with other department programs in same location, ensure their employees receive annual training, ensure their managers and supervisors carry out. I mean, there's a lot of references in this policy to other things that are I don't know what they would be, appendixes or links or,
So that's,
how do we get the other information? Like, where is the more fleshed out? This just sort of is kind of the big picture.
that's fine.
Yeah, so what a lot of this speaks to is what the workplace violence prevention team does in the background. So templates, for example, templates for department level workplace violence prevention plans. So the reason we have templates, the reason we have individual department plans is every department's set up a little bit differently. And so they have a different location, they have a different plan of escape, so to speak, if an incident, workplace violence incident happens, active shooter, worst case happens, every department plan has to be a little bit different. They can't all be the same. So this overriding policy sets the framework, and then the team and these individual department plans set the action. So this is asking for you to oversee it, so to speak. As you see up above that in responsibilities, the HR Resources Department and the Safety Program, which is mostly my division, maintains a lot of that.
So if somebody had a concern about their safety, how would they read this and know what they're supposed to do?
So as part of all of this, and as part of as this lays out, there is planning, training, resources, education that the workplace violence prevention team is in the process of rolling out in conjunction with this, as I indicated, Workplace Violence Prevention 2.0. So you'll see trainings around this. There's, various trainings that we've been vetting through through the team, through the Equity and Diversity Inclusion Office, that we'll be rolling out countywide very shortly. We're updating the template so departments can update. Every department has an existing workplace violence prevention plan for their specific departments. We want to make sure that those are updated because they were created a couple years ago soon after the workplace violence prevention team was created. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe, 2016, 2017 timeframe, they were created by most departments. Some of them are very extensive, some of them are very simple. We want to make it a little bit more uniform on that. And part of all of this, updating, additionally, the Alertus system, which is an emergency notification system, which is a hardwired system that'll have panic buttons, emergency notifications to cell phones, laptops, computer desktops, potentially banners, or electronic reader board banners. All these things are in process. We've already put it in at Stokes. We're in the process of putting it in the juvenile building here, and then PSB and DSB are next on the list and have been approved budgetarily to get that equipment. So all pieces to educate, assist, notify people in the event of a workplace violence incident.
Something.
Yes, please.
So to answer your question, if an employee had a situation, the purpose of this policy is to have a to-do list for managers and supervisors so they know what to do. And then the policy, the employees will, if they look at this, they would know where they would go. Every department already has, for the most part, a plan, but they have the plan, but it's been sitting on the shelf. And so what this policy does is reinforce that we don't want you to have a plan on the shelf. We want you to have an active plan and educate your workforce what the plan is. So should a scenario present itself and an employee needs to get some help, they know what to do and where to go, and that they're informed with what their plan is. We have a plan in HR, so my responsibility is to make sure that my staff knows what do we do. We just, if Eric's not there,
Right.
they need to be aware of what is the plan.
Of succession, for instance.
Yes.
Yeah, if Eric's not there. So will this plan require new trainings for all employees?
Yes, the idea is to have training for all employees for general workplace violence prevention. So that's training that we intend to roll out shortly. And then individual department level training around their department plan.
So supervisors and electeds would have a different form of training than the employees who are not in supervisory positions?
That would be yes.
That would be a yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Remembering the training I had when I first came on, that would be a yes. So, because we have to know how to react as supervisors if someone comes to us, we need to be able to advise them what to do next, correct?
Correct.
Yes, if they detect any violence or harassment or whatever. That's really important. And in that training, for instance, would I be taught to, or recommended to comfort the individual, to let them know that they are safe and that they will be heard? And I think that's important. I mean, I don't know if that's part of the training or not, but in the research I've done on this topic, hesitancy is for reporting such things is because they don't believe that they will be believed. And so I think our attitudes regarding this are very important moving forward. Yes.
I'm just going to make a move to approve the policy, option 1.
Okay, Sonia?
Yeah, so you brought up a really good point about feeling safe. Where are we in regards to confidentiality and protection for people who might be victim of violence that affects the workplace? Is that part of this policy?
You can talk about the protocol that you have already in place with facilities. If so, we have employees, for example, if they have a restraining order,
Sure. So there's a couple things, and that's an excellent point, Evelyn. There are a couple other policies that are mentioned in here. There's EPP 39 and EPP 60, domestic violence victim leave and domestic violence and other related violence awareness assistance, that are not directly related to this policy, but some of what you mentioned are where those also could come into play. When somebody comes to us with a concern, whether it's from a domestic violence situation, an employee comes to us, whether they're concerned about in a domestic violence situation spilling over in the workplace or their own personal safety for something, we work with, typically myself, Jeff Jorgensen with facilities, to create a safety plan for that employee, whether that's, allowing them to park up close in the building, to the building instead of across the street. A lot of it comes into play more in the wintertime when it's darker. Maybe escort, make sure they're escorted out or buddied up with somebody when they leave the building. Things like that, come into work maybe later. Whatever safety things we can put into place to make an employee feel comfortable if they come to us with those kind of situations. They might have a restraining order in place, so then we give that information to lobby staff to say, hey, if this person arrives, immediately notify this employee or myself or Jeff Jorgensen, or call the police depending on the seriousness of the situation. So yes, we do that on occasion.
And then what if it's between workers and within the workforce? I mean, the confidentiality piece of it, do you have any safeguards around that?
Let me make sure I understand. So you asked in confidentiality around using this example.
But it could be like two workers and there's a threat of violence and
What's the confidentiality piece that we're?
I am just curious if there is that, because Chair Smith is right. It's sometimes people won't come forward for fear of retaliation, for fear that they won't be believed, for fear. So do we have, it was within this policy, is there, I don't see it.
Okay,
If it's there.
I think I understand what you're saying. So in the, so when an employee files a complaint, what we tell them that we try to keep the information as confidential as we can, and we give them a to-do if they believe there's going to be any retaliation because they brought forth the complaint. We can't 100% guarantee confidentiality, but we do everything we can to keep their information as confidential as we can, so we don't share it with the workforce. But there's usually, it's a reporting, and so we make note of that, and then we'll reach out to the immediate supervisor to address the issue. And we'll try to work with the departments to make sure that the employee's personal situation is not being discussed in the work environment. And we try to keep that as confidential as we can. But we can't guarantee confidentialities because I don't know if an employee talked to their coworkers about it and before they reported it. But if they're reported it and we're the first person to receive it, then it's between the employee and the immediate supervisor, because we have to work with the immediate supervisor to work out a situation where the employee has a safe environment and they feel comfortable.
Yeah, I keep thinking about what happens as a special education lawyer, there are children that are bullied in school, and each school is supposed to have a point of contact that is responsible for making sure that bullying isn't happening and that people are supposed to be protected through that whole process. But so I'm just trying to relay how it works.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl, you have a comment?
Yes, Eric, on your paper here, you say that the implementing these changes, but the security system improvements will take some time?
Take some time for the hardwire
Is that
installation.
CCTV? What is that?
It's several things. No, it's not, well, there are some cameras, additional cameras that I believe are being implemented as part of it, but it's mostly panic buttons, additional little monitor that'll provide some additional information, strobes, hardware that will just allow for more safety and more notification.
And
And this is for, this would be for more emergency type situations,
Right, okay.
whether it's an active shooter, whether it's a chemical spill, whether it's, somebody out of control in the building.
Okay, and your paper says that this is not on the current budget. And what's the cost of that? Do you have that covered?
Gary is approved for the PSB and DSB to be.
Okay. We have two different topics here. Today's just a
Yes,
policy.
correct,
We can brief you on the other items if you want, although I've emailed you all, commissioners. That's all covered in the budget. There's no extra money needed.
Okay.
It's already been budgeted, approved.
Okay.
You approved it. Thank you.
We have a motion on the table to approve. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has made the motion. Commissioner Scholl has seconded. Do we have any further discussion, comments, or questions on this? Hearing none. Christina, could you please call the poll?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Eric and Evelyn, for coming forward and bringing this important piece of work.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You bet.
Thank you. The last item, commissioners, is Commissioner Communications.
Okay, let's see. Commissioner Fisher, do you have anything you need to say today?
Yeah, I just had a question. So we went on the forestry tour, the wildfire tour, the one question that is really bothering me, and I don't know if we have any answers, but I did ask the question. We really brought home that when we were in our family camp and got the information that it is 1 year until those trees are not usable because of the beetles.
About.
So I asked the question to our staff, do we know how many board feet in our national forest is not usable? I mean, won't be usable after a year, and they didn't have the answer to that. And I don't even know if it's even worth pursuing the question, but it just bothers me that when we have this economy and you need wood and you try to get wood or you're trying to get your deck and then the prices and that we have this resource that is just going to get eaten by beetles.
Well, they do have
So I don't
ways,
know where that
they
is
do
at.
have ways of determining board feet, and they can do that now through drones and LiDAR. And if you remember the presentation from PGE, LiDAR, they can go out and count every single tree, determine what the board foot of that tree is from LiDAR. And it is somewhat accurate. You never truly get your exact accuracy until it's logged and taken to the mill, and then the mill actually counts the board feet in every single log, and those are called log scalers. But aside from that, there is a way. We do not have the resources at the county to do that. Those are federally owned lands. I would think that they would have a report, maybe. I don't know. Maybe we can reach out to forestry through BCS to see if the information is available. I do think it's valuable information. Just like the information, I wanted to see the forest fire overlays on particular ownerships in our county of what has been burned. And I don't know that those maps are available. I don't know who does that. Gary, you have any recommendations on that?
Let's ask our Andrew, our forester, and our BCS staff to follow up.
I know that the issue of getting that to be logged and it's a NEPA issue. It's going through the federal government, and then it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, did you know?
Federal regulations, it doesn't pass the smell test for me, so I'm just bringing it up, thinking that this may be an advocacy role for us, possibly, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know how many board feet there are. So that's my first question.
There's also the other law in that on federal forest land. They do not have to go in and log after a wildfire. That is a law from Congress. And so in order for us to get any movement on this, it's literally an act of Congress to get them to do something. So also what came up, you and I were discussing, Gary, what percentage of Clackamas County is forest land, and one of the staff people said 70% of Clackamas County is forested, and we wanted to make sure we heard that correctly. We're not questioning her, but I want to make sure additionally that you and I heard that correctly.
And that 52% is forest land?
Of federal land.
That's what I meant. Federal land?
Yes.
Sorry, it's a long day.
It used to be 52 to 53% of Oregon is federally owned lands, and I believe Clackamas County mirrors that closely.
It's just a huge responsibility that we have.
We do.
And being out there was incredible. When we were up at the top and we could see to Marion County, and then you could see the patchwork of the different lands, and you could see what's state, what's BLM, what's
private.
Yeah, what's private.
What's state forestry.
It's just kind of, and maybe I don't know enough, but and I know that commercial logging, they're all tied up with the property that's private land, and get those trees out of there and get them salvaged as much as possible. But it seems to me that if there would be an economic interest in getting the trees out that could be saved.
You would think so, right?
That's where it's not adding up.
I know, it's a heartbreaker.
So whoever put that together, thank you. I don't know where, I know that Everett put it together, so I don't know if Commissioner Savas instigated that, or if that was Chair Smith, or whatever staff person
It wasn't me.
suggested it.
Yeah, I'm just really thankful
It was
that we were able to
excellent.
go out.
Whoever thought that was a good idea.
It was excellent, and we
idea.
just have such knowledgeable staff on this area.
You asked for it, Board, when you had a policy session a few months ago from the Association of ONC Counties on our forest
Okay, well,
update.
good for us.
So you asked for it,
Good for us.
and then Everett Wild helped coordinate all of it.
Yeah, Everett did very good on that. Thank you, Everett.
So,
Commissioner-
Tootie, correct me if I'm wrong. You probably know more about this than anyone here at the table right now, and that is that prior to any forest fire, lots of logging efforts, attempts that have been made have been stopped by groups that are not in favor of cutting trees, and they've used water quality, turbidity, runoff, roads, all the things that would naturally happen in logging as the means to say that's a detriment to wildlife or in-stream fish and so forth. So that's always been an issue. After a forest fire, that very issue is magnified significantly because of the toxicity of the burned, scorched land. And that burned, scorched land and the byproducts of that are different for different species, areas around, and soil types. So it just magnifies and amplifies it and complicates it all.
That's really true. It started out with species. Well, first, everything was an endangered species, and really that's how I cut my teeth in politics, over the listing of the spotted owl. My first political job when I was 29 was lobbying the United States Congress, and for this very issue. And I've forgotten more than, I can remember about the topic, and it has just morphed over the years, and the reasons for not logging have changed, but they're really all the same, and we're going to have trouble in our county with the fuel loads, and that's what's at issue. And the cause of the fuel loads are many. And so as we go forward, the best we can do is to prepare ourselves against impending disaster. I'm very happy with the response of our 3 little fires we've had so far. And I say little because they were kept little by the firefighting efforts to keep them that way. And I believe our governor has doubled her efforts in making sure fire suppression is a top priority for her. However, the question still remains is, what do we do with all of this burned timber? And as you remember, this was just the Beachy Creek fire. And if you go back to the maps that they handed out, the Beachy Creek fire is much smaller than the Riverside fire. The Riverside fire was probably 3 or 4 times larger than this, and we didn't even see one stick of that fire. And so that is the enormity and how large Clackamas County is in the whole scope of things. It was very, very telling. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, just we need to keep the conversation going. It's
Yeah.
important.
Commissioner Savas, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'm tired.
Me too, I'm very tired.
I know, I'm tired too.
Commissioner Scholl.
Chair Smith, I have something, I'll save it till Thursday.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it'll wait.
Thank you. I do not have anything to say. Commissioners, thank you for a long day. We've done some good work here today, and the meeting is adjourned.